The U.S. Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives are both out on recess this week, but calls for action on health care reform have not slowed down. Pro-life leaders continue to demand two important pro-life protections remain in place in U.S. health care reform. First, taxpayers must be protected from funding abortion, and second, Planned Parenthood, the largest abortion provider, must be defunded. Joining me now is Marilyn Musgrave, a former U.S. representative from the state of Colorado and the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Susan B. Anthony list. Congresswoman, it's good to have you here.
Good to be here.
Before we delve into our discussion, I'd like to look at an interview I recently did with Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina. We discussed health care reform and more. Let's take a look at that now. Why, as a pro-life senator, is health care reform important to you?
Well, health care reform is important because we've made a promise to the American people that the federal and state governments could provide a safety net. And now that safety net's being threatened. If we don't make changes in our health care policies a few years down the road, I think we're going to have a significant crisis in terms of providers leaving the marketplace and insurance companies providing policies that are simply unaffordable. That creates a real safety net problem that worries me. It's one of the most important things I think we have to focus on in this Congress.
Senator, 11-month-old baby Charlie Gard recently died in London after being denied experimental treatment that went against his parents' wishes. How alarming is this case to you, Senator, and could we see an incident like Charlie Gard's in our current U.S. healthcare system?
Well, I think it's very sad, and we have to avoid it. If you think about Charlie, he was one of those vulnerable people that needs our help, and I hope as a matter of policy or as a matter of practice in the United States, we would never see that sort of situation that the parents are confronted with, and would do everything I could to support policies to avoid that.
How much, Senator, of a priority are the pro-life protections in our health care to you? Would you vote for a plan that didn't both A, prevent the taxpayer funding of abortion, and B, defund Planned Parenthood?
Well, I think that any of our policies here that deal with appropriation should always have HIDE protections. We should not be providing taxpayer funding of abortions. On Planned Parenthood, as Speaker of the House, I supported measures to defund Planned Parenthood in the state. I think that we need to make sure that we communicate to the American people that that's not defunding women's health. It's actually putting that money, equivalent and sometimes more sums of money, in community health clinics that provide mammography and all the kinds of things that women's health clinics can provide. We've got to do a better job of communicating to the American people what we're trying to do, which is to simply prevent taxpayer dollars being used to fund abortions.
What advice might you have, Senator, for our viewers who want to communicate that message to their friends and neighbors at home?
Well, I think one thing we have to do is lower the temperature and just have a calm, respectful discussion about the value of life. We did that in North Carolina, and over the course of a few years that I was Speaker, we were able to get bipartisan support for pro-life bills that have dramatically reduced the number of abortions in North Carolina. But it starts with the tone, and it starts with just communicating, and I think in a way that everyone can understand and can talk with their families, talk with people in their communities, so that we make this less polarizing than it really should be.
Senator, you are Catholic. Does your Catholic faith influence your pro-life views, and if so, how?
Well, it does. You know, I grew up in a family of 6 kids. I've been a Catholic all my life. I've got a big now family of nieces and nephews, and we've had some with very difficult circumstances. I have a niece who's had suffered profound illness from the point that she was born. She's been on a feeding tube all of her life, and but she's really brought joy to our family and joy to her parents. And I think that, you know, it's just being raised in that sort of culture. It's just a part of who I am, and it's a part of who I'll always be.
Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Congresswoman, based on what Senator Thom Tillis was saying, how come we couldn't get pro-life Democrats to vote in favor of the Senate bill? Do we have pro-life Democrats?
Well, there are Democrats that have voted for pro-life bills, but of course this Obamacare and repealing and replacing that, you know, they in-group oppose doing away with that. But the thing about Tillis that really struck me, when the senator was speaking, we helped elect him. You know, he talked about how when he was Speaker of the House in North Carolina, he worked to defund Planned Parenthood and sign into law pro-life legislation. We worked very hard to elect him, and I'm so glad his pro-life voice is there in the Senate. And we especially needed it as they were doing health care, because Susan B. Anthony List all along on the House side and the Senate side have said no taxpayer funding of abortion and redirect those Planned Parenthood dollars to community health care centers that can really give women comprehensive health care and don't do abortions, you know. And so Tillis spoke, you know, from the heart, a man that we helped elect. I mean, you can see how great he is in the Senate.
Seems he was very passionate about this.
Yes.
Right now we're seeing an open public debate amongst the Democratic Party on whether or not they would be open to electing pro-life candidates. How significant is this?
Well, it's very significant to me because they are noticing that they have a problem with registered Democrats around this country who 30% self-identify as pro-life, and the party has left them. But I have to tell you, I'm very skeptical. Okay. I'm a former state legislator in Colorado where, you know, I was told that this pro-life Democrat, Bill Ritter, that was running for governor, was told by the Archbishop of our state that he was the real deal. The first thing Bill Ritter did, and like Kane, who ran as a vice presidential candidate, had been a Catholic missionary, the first thing he did was to restore funding to Planned Parenthood, you know, that provides abortions in Colorado. After we in the legislature and Jane Norton as lieutenant governor had worked very hard to make sure no taxpayer dollars were going for abortion in Colorado. When I came to Congress, there were Democrats that would vote pro-life on occasion. But where are the Chris Smiths? Where are the Trent Franks? Where are the Diane Blacks? You know, the pro-life Democrats that will do more than just give you a vote on occasion, that will really champion life. And I tell you, when you are really pro-life, it's high up on your list of priorities. For many of us, it was the highest priority because we know that's the most vulnerable human being there is. And if you go to Congress to help veterans and to help people with problems with the government, with private property rights, many ranchers lived in my district. I mean, you have to be aware that the most vulnerable human being is that unborn child. And if you're going to have that, you know, in your heart, you have to work for it. You have to break a sweat for it. You have to make sacrifices for it. And we need pro-life Democrats. We need them so badly. We need them to pass unborn child pain capable. There will be a vote this fall in the House and hopefully in the Senate. And I hope that Democrats will vote to ban late-term abortion. And I hope the party will find room for pro-life Democrats. But let me tell you, if you're elected as a pro-life Democrat, I saw this when I was in Congress, and you immediately vote for Nancy Pelosi as Speaker then, you're not going to do anything pro-life because they're going to tramp that down. It's not going to happen. So let's be real about this. If you're going to have real pro-life Democrats that can act on their beliefs while they're legislators.
Constituents will be watching. We will be watching. Marilyn Musgrave of the Susan B. Anthony List, thank you so much for your insight on this.
Great to be here.